and not just teammates, but everyone in the background when he's coming back from injury, and all the rehab. I think that's really important. If you feel like you've got a team that believes in you and is there to support you no matter what, then that's a really important thing to have. And I think the fact that he, when you even listen to the video that the team had put out, and
it was fantastic.
It was fantastic. And actually, it's quite emotional listening to he's writing the letter, and you think, wow, that's incredible, because not every rider has that feeling within a team that be right at home, and because that's a big statement to say, right, well, I'm going to be in this team until the very end of my career, active career, and that's a lot of trust that he's put in the team, but it's also a lot of trust that the team have put in him too. So it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, and on that note, we do wish him a good recovery, because the 3.5 minutes, something like that, and Thomas de Gent quite, single-handedly has it under control.
I'm doing a terrific job at that. It's quite interesting to see that they never wanted these 6 riders to have more than 4 minutes, and even though it's been well under control and there's several teams who are interested to bring them back, the fact that it's just been this holding pattern of 1:45 to 2 minutes, or just over that 2-minute marker for 30 kilometers now, is really interesting.
ሲራክ መቸነ ለካ ዝገበርና ጌርና ምጽና
especially when we start to get towards that final 20 kilometers or so, even 25 kilometers, because everyone's going to be fighting for position on the wide road before they take the left-hand turn into the narrow entrance into the bottom of the climb. You're going to start to see a bit of a change.
Beautiful castles here in the south of Belgium. We're racing through the province of Namur, where Namur is also the capital city, quite conveniently. This kind of needs a little bit of DIY. I think actually beyond DIY. This is
big renovations.
This big renovation. It's not going to happen anymore. But many of these big castles here in the region, and the Citadel de Namur itself has got quite the history as well. This is an old fort. We are in the province, in the town of Onay, and on these small. But there is a nice legend going with this castle. When it was sieged, they were about to surrender, and the besiegers, they kind of made a claim and said, well, the lord of the castle has to surrender, but his wife had a plan.
كم يالحجي كم يورلت فيديو
The lady of the manor
أجل حيشكرون
castle was able to leave the castle unharmed. Her husband was supposed to be put to death, the lord of the castle, and the besiegers, they said, well, you can take your most precious things with you. So when she came out, she had a bunch of how do you call that, branches, a bunch of branches on her shoulder. And of course they thought, well, is this the most precious thing that you have? But hidden within that huge bush of branches was her husband, hidden, and he left the castle unharmed. Of course this is a legend, but as you know, I like a little bit of a legend. But one last thing, of course, with every legend comes a treasure. And supposedly around the castle there is a treasure buried, and people are still looking for it, Hannah. They have not found it.
We saw 2 people up there in the castle.
Could have been treasure hunters.
Could have been treasure hunters.
But of course, every old building, people love a little bit of a legend, and this one comes with the castle of Montaigle that we just saw, or the ruins of said castle. Also, the Koning very active at the front. Yeah, like I said, they have a few candidates. I think Quinten Hermans, based on his performances in the Tour of Belgium 2 years ago on a similar arrival, not the Citadel, but also his form coming from the Vuelta could be one of our favourites. And yeah, what can Caden Groves do on these kind of things? We know that he does quite well with a little bit of elevation, because I remember the race director of the Vuelta, Javier Guillen, saying, we need to look at our sprint stages. It's like, yeah, what sprint stages exactly? maybe we should inject a little bit of flatness into the Vuelta. But Caden Groves, he knows how to sprint with a little bit of elevation. So 2 captains there for the Opposite, the Koning team, with 2 young bucks, 2 young riders of their development team, with Aaron Dox racing there with number 17 and Thibaut Grosso with number 16. Not coincidentally, 2 riders from their cyclocross background as well.
And I think you only have to look at some of the victories that Groves had during the Vuelta, that he is one of those sprinters who is quite complete. He's an all-rounder. He can climb very, very well. You think he's got over a first categorised climb. He took the victory beating Wout van Aert and Corbin Strong into Viablino. And so he can meet the demands of these harder races where it is hilly. And for some sprinters, they're not capable of being able to get themselves over these bigger climbs. And obviously today is very, very different to what we saw on that stage in the Vuelta. But nevertheless, on these punchy climbs, even when it's 3 kilometres at an average gradient of 6%, he's still able to be there. And so he's got that unique capability almost.
Of course, we'll have to see how his recovery is after the Vuelta. We're about 10 days after the finish in Madrid. There's always that thing called super compensation, where riders have got superpowers about a week, 2 weeks after a Grand Tour. But it is the 3rd Grand Tour of the season, so yeah, let's see how he recovers and whether he is going to participate in the sprint, or it will be all eyes on Quinten Hermans.
I think that's the beauty of the team, the fact that they have got the options. And even within this team of Lotto Destiny, you see the Belgian champion here, Orange Ali, they've got options too. So for this kind of finish, I mean, when you take a look at the way in which Orange Ali is another sprinter who can climb very, very well. You take a look at Quebec on Friday, and the way he was able to follow some of those stinger attacks is quite remarkable, really.
3,000 meters of elevation, 3,100 actually, today. So yeah, that's basically a sprint stage in the Vuelta, that is. Spanish flat is what I used to call it when I covered the Vuelta back in the days. Our breakaway are slowly starting the plateau after Onay, where we just saw that castle, the town that the Peloton just went through. So then we basically stay on that plateau for a little bit. This is the road into the plateau. And there we have another climb, and that's called the Côte d'Hermeton. It was not part of the women's race. We pick up the women's race in Profondéville when we go back to the Meuse River. But that climb that is coming up, the Côte d'Hermeton, 1.8 kilometers, 3.6%. That comes at 44 kilometers. We are starting our way up towards the plateau as we speak. 140 riders took the start this morning. Julien Simon, veteran of Total Energie, and also Vito Braat of Intermarché Wanty did not take the start due to various reasons that we are not aware of. Kunibolli, the man in pink, is quite often part of a breakaway. Even last Sunday in the Grand Prix des Berges, he was part of the day's breakaway. Sometimes that brings him success, but as we know, quite often the day's breakaway is doomed, and I'm afraid that today it will be a doomed breakaway.
Yeah, sadly, because you only have to see the way in which this race has gone and how it's been so well controlled by particularly one team, Lotto Destiny, and even by one man actually, Thomas de Gent. And so, whilst the 6 riders, they're working well together, they've got the cohesion, sadly for them, with such strength and depth, and so many riders who can be successful and take the victory here in Grand Prix de Wallonie, it's sadly almost a matter of time and a matter of when will they be caught and when will the race start to change. But you're quite right, for Kenny Molly, he's one of those riders who's always very, very active, always likes to get himself into the breakaway.
No, أبزم أنا كنت سأبزي ورا درندلو معت. أبزي أزلو كلتا يتراين له. هينوك ملوبرانن بينام قرماي مالتي. Okay. مرا كنت سأبزي ورا دريلن. Yeah.
Where he was in a couple of breakaways. You take a look at some of the early season racing, or even in last year, he was always prominent. He was always up towards the front. He was always in those early breakaways, and it doesn't matter for sometimes what the terrain is like. He's always one that you can rely on to be there.
Well, the cows look particularly unimpressed. Oh, look, bike race going on. Great shot, this.
حمسان كتن تريك ولا لوت تاخد هم هذه يوم دلوقا نيداغن سالسان شعتن كالتن دلت في اللي سو تاخد داغن حمسان كتن تريك ولا كيلومتر سو ترجع قريب يقوم تري ولا لهم لو ما خافتهم بينام بقدام درجة نخوات تواي وزلو قمتي كافتهم تواي وزلو قمت نبينام قدام نتوام وزلو يعني من ورانون كعوات تقول الله من أتوشون دفعي ما يكون أنا بسبته
ولد. To be able to race with the World Tour outfit, and if it does go the way Nils Peters is hoping and saying, of course they want to come here and take the victory. What a way to be able to do and to be a part of and have your contribution, and knowing that you've played your role, you've played your part within that team's success. And I think for the 19-year-old, it's a wonderful opportunity to learn to gain that experience. And as you mentioned before, it's seeing it from a team management point of view, knowing that they're able to follow those instructions, they're able to be a crucial and vital team member to everybody. So, yeah, it's great to see the 19-year-old right up there. Bit by bit, the gap of our six leaders. Jan Sommer, he is a trainee on the Q36.5 team. Their other trainee, hugely successful, Jelte Kleinse. Jan Sommer is 24, turned 24 in August. I know him mostly from cyclocross. He doesn't have a huge amount of experience racing on the road. But he's got himself a win. That was last year in Croatia, where he raced with Swiss Cycling. Got himself a win in the 1.5 kilometre long prologue. And that is, of course, what cyclocross riders really do well. There was a race in Austria during the Tour de France, where basically the entire top 10 was made up of cyclocross riders. It's what they do when they start their efforts, really short, punchy efforts, few minutes. And that's also what Jan Sommer did. He's raced more on the road this year than he did before, and a few good placings, including a top 10 at the national championships, got him a traineeship. He's done the Lidl Deutschland tour with the team already, so the tour of Germany, and he raced the Classic Muur, which is on Muur van Giersbergen, one-day race with finish on the and now he's in the breakaway, but I mostly know him from cyclocross, where he's been part of the international peloton for quite some time. Maybe at age 24, he's decided to switch and focus on the road a little bit more. We've seen that before. Once you go through the junior and under 23 ranks, and kind of find yourself stuck in a rut when it comes to your progress on in cyclocross or mountain bike for that matter, or what other discipline that you have.
maybe he decided to focus a little bit more on the road, and as a Swiss rider, he found himself a traineeship with this team, Jan Sommer.
And of course, important for them as a Swiss team, 36.5, Swiss rider. And as you say, maybe he's wanting to say, right,
بينام
well, I
مزلك
want to do a
بتقولوا
lot
بينام
more on the
مزلك
road. And
أفزع
we've
ما أخذ
seen
بينام
already,
بيهم
give me a shot, hand in hand, give me
بينام
a
ما
shot.
أخذ
It
بيهم
goes hand in hand. He can still do his cyclocross in the winter, do more road
بوة تايزلو
here.
بينام
And
معتي
here he's got a great opportunity, having that stagiaire place, that traineeship within the team to show himself and show what he can do.
He's done 2 World Tour races with the Swiss national team, both the World Tour races in Switzerland, Tour of Romandy and the Tour of Switzerland, and finished them both, so good results there. Results came in both of these races, ultra short prologues. One in Liechtenstein and one in Bayern. We have new teams at the front, including Q36.5. Fabio Christen is an interesting name. He was 5th last year, and he wanted to return to this race to do even better. So he's here for Q36.5. The aforementioned Jelte Krijns, already 2 wins this season.
هنا كون نغش زلوا بزعبة جوجل زلوا
Joey Steidler on grand form, I should say, during the European Road Championships, and former Canadian champ. There he is in second position, Nikola Sikowski. They are taking over at the moment, despite the fact that they have representation at the front.
But this is really interesting because now they've made that right-hand turn. They're into a crosswind here, so they're going to be in this section of the course. That'll take them all the way until 40 kilometers to go, and then they'll make a right-hand turn into the headwind. And so for
درجات قارة ثلاثة يالهم نفاس سرزول ريو نفاس على الطعم
as you can see, they're trying to
زي حرقني زا هم زا
split things. Delee's right up there. Destiny have got several riders. You can see just this why, even though they've got a rider up the front, they're wanting to try and use these weather conditions and this part of the
نفاس سرزول بالطعم يجلس كاتوغور بلو فريتم
to really try and
مغلوم
split
تابجي
things
لك
because
من
they want to
كلمنت
try and catch some of maybe the faster men out here last year, but he wants to do better than that, and they're trying to put themselves in the best possible situation to eliminate some of those riders who might be thinking, well, nothing's going to happen. They're caught out on the wrong side of the split, and it works to their advantage.
Yeah, Fabio Christen, the oldest of the 2 brothers. Young Christen, of course, part of UE Team Emirates.
وازا بجلة أكتر ما أروع بجلة زي حرقني زي هم زا بينام تسفق برابسون كله تغنيت بركن فاس سلازلو.
In the final, and also some good results racing on a 23 at the European Championships, both the road race and the time trial just outside of.
بينام على ريو بينام سومالو بينام استقدامت كجلة
dozing off at the back of the
استقدامت
bunch,
كجلة بينام
you might find yourself in a little bit of trouble at the moment.
And it's coming back to this, the one thing that the front group needs to do is to maintain this and to continue working, because as you can see, everybody's woken up behind in that chase. They're all trying to close the gap. As I say, they'll get to the end of this crosswind section with
حرقني زي بتعمل حرقني كير ما زلواجي قجلة لا عبا قجلة كنت دم على ريوا بينام استقدامي تغيله نغيس لمزو.
This is Johan Jacobs for Movistar, the man who lives in Belgium, fluent in Dutch. Very attentive. There shouldn't them just yet, but they are here. With a little bit of bad luck at the European Championships, had a flat tyre and was overlooked by the team cars. So basically found if it comes to a finish line like we have today, a rider to look out for.
زيادة حتى عبا قجلة لا تفعل ريوا زي بينام زي قجلة بينام على نغيس لمزو بينام تبو حيز اللواء.
The red and yellow. It's just a big hit, that kit, isn't it? sea of bluish colours, having UNOX always
بتينا
easily
ما نزوج
recognisable.
للبابا
So, well, of course, he didn't do that many spring classics. Fellow Jack.
حجي 45 تريهم على تريهم عندنا 45 كيلومتر رايح درجات صوتنا بليز كده
Like sufferer. Biniam Grimai also doesn't have a lot of problems staying awake. Somebody told me, by the way, that moving back east is easier jet lag wise than traveling west. But I'm not a very travel.
بينام اليوم سام مسا قريت هذا الكمية سو كويني بار الريو زعق سكانك أبوك عادي زلمة.
Two teammates in there. Also, just noticed that Sebastian Milano is there for UAE team members, the Colombian sprinter, and this is starting to open up now.
ريو زي حديتا عباية جوجي لها ريو ده هرجي فون سو أنا ما عاد ريو.
12 seconds.
بينام كذا أوصي خيدي مستقد متزلا.
Movistar, they're trying to bring this gap down. 26 seconds now between the two groups.
نتوم أقد يوم هريون ورون عم لرجع يركوا ما نزيم اليوم توم هريون توم هنزيم نزيم لرجع لرجع كيوم ما مزبان يا لرجع كيوم ما نزيم أبزيم حريتي بعولا أبزيم ماتي كن فايلن كلمة حريتي بعولا نزيم من لرجع كيوم ما سران سكند ريو عبيام سران سكند عندي هرم دولا قاو فلذا أكيوم
once the second group joins them. This is the Peloton. Hard to see from this perspective, of course, who is going to do the work. This is the town of Echelon with the beautiful castle that was built in the early 14th century by the Marquis of Namur. The last heir to that line died in combat in the First World War in 1914, and then it was left to a community of
كيلومتر.
Yes. It's unclear to me whether they still live there, by the way. I think they do. The gaps, Hannah, are not super big at the moment, but we can almost see them in one shot. We have our group of leaders there, and then a second group.
They're going to merge us around 20 seconds.
بقى
Breakaway.
لو على البنيام قلت لنا نتوم هادي يوم صنع لو عمر كيوم على ريو لو تحوسهم على لو على البنيام قلت لنا مالتي
And behind, 20 seconds.
جي كنت قلت له هنا كنت عبيت قلت له واحد هذا ما مالتي كنت عبيت قلت له هنا زي حجنا بعد بنيام قلت له قلت له هنا لا ما تهجريها بني صبوا هزل بيا هاي تقول لها بقى قلت لها دهرت على ما ترى دهرت ما تصور لكن درجة أبغى مش حاول يعني بينا هنا سواء 40 قرن تري فوضى الكيلومتر مش حابب لينا هاي مسوي كوفيلو إذا ما تحج سحيبو هذا حركة كاسير بلاتنا روازات عبا قجلا ريوا حتى لا ريوا زي مالته زاد عبا قجلا قلت كم يزلوا خلاص عبينا مالته درجة حدا درجة قرا من لازم يسحب عليه
and the fact that they've now got another rider to add to the mix because he was in the breakaway, they've put themselves in a really strong position. So in the group, you can see Sebastian Gerhard, number 135 of Lotto Destiny.
جاي بعد بنيام قجلا.
But it will come back together, but everybody will be awake at this point, and this is, this Côte d'Hermeton that we are. That we just did, we just passed the town of Peloton, of course. it's also the start of the final. We have a little bit of 5 kilometers on this plateau. Then we go back towards the river, towards Provence-de-Ville, and then we go to Tienne-au-Pierre, where we have an intermediate sprint going on, and then an uncategorized climb at about 9 kilometers. And we saw in the women's race, despite the fact that it's on my list as only being 4.2%, it was a pretty tricky climb.
And if
you've not got good legs, then
it's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt, and if you don't have the legs to be able to respond to some of your rivals who might want to use that as a launch pad, it's going to be very, very difficult to bring them back. But I mean, the thing is that the weather, as the days got on, the wind's gotten stronger. So earlier on it was 22 kilometers per hour. It's now 28 kilometers per hour, the wind. And so, it's working into the favour. However, when they're going to make this right-hand turn with 40 kilometers to go, they're going to be into that block headwind, which is going to take them all the way until 32 kilometers to go, and then they'll make the left-hand turn. The wind will be again onto the right-hand side. They'll have more crosswind, and so then they're going to traverse the way up north to Namurba.
We have had solo winds here.
بينام مزيوم جلو كم تعم بيزبوكو إذا قدامت جوجل ولا بينام ريو لتعبيت الجوجل تبتيرنا الله أنت زين بينام ولا كم بينام ريو والله سوام كوي ريو ولا كم بينام بس هذا لهم سوام كوي نبار.
Also, Chris Nijmans, I remember the Latvian rider managed to finish solo, but usually we have a small group making it to the line, or like last year, a sprint of 2 riders sprinting it out for the win, and that was between Gonzalo Serrano and Dylan Tones. Dylan Tones sadly not here, but Serrano is not racing with number 1, but racing with number 7, and they even
كان تليفونهم 3 كيلومتر 40 أبدا 4 بزح تقول له اليوم فاتن له هجي أقداسي كيلومتر يجي تليفون دلله مالتي.
Then you think these things should be clear to us commentators. Former winner takes number 1, but here we are, completely confused. Obviously, in the Koningal here with Oscar Riesebeek, Sandra Merisse, and there's a 3rd rider there. Great shot this. William Grimay.
Yeah.
Good form.
William Grimay.
Finish absolutely tailor-made for the man. Jake Stewart, Joe Blackmore.
هو أب كان نايت تورناي لوكسمبورغ زبال جميل له أو يكاد له أو فاندربول له أبزغا عمينا ما نتريه تبغى أمدر لزين تبغى صحوا على زغاجي توات أم طويناس بينام كات وات أسوق جرا بينام تبغى جرا توات أسوق عم سبيلا لبز بتعم لك تاب تاب كأجوريهم كاسرة ولا وهرات اللهم تاب تيكم أو بسخاتهم تأغلون شعد سوكم يتسوى هاي تهاكي تاب نبع تو
However, that gap is holding at 20 seconds. It's not growing, but you can see the way in which the Peloton is forming. They know that they can't allow them to gain too much time. The fact that you've got such strong riders in that front group, and as you've got several riders there, which is a big surprise.
I think this is Heno Kitirtage.
More or less,
زود هنا كتير هنا بالران.
Thomas Dickensi's Echelon Mondial. They don't have one rider from the looks of things.
Don't send out press releases. We are going to win. jinxing yourself.
But it just shows as well. You might not think that something could happen in that little section of 7 kilometers, 8 kilometers.
You knew.
But it did. So
you knew because you'd looked at the wind directions, and so it would have many of the sports directors, I would assume.
they're very keen to keep things working here. They really know that they're in a really strong situation. The fact that they've got their main card, particularly at Lotto Destiny, they've got their main card with Arnold Ali. And so they
قميت له بينام قميت يزلو بينام أبزع قميت مزع كلتا جوجل ندلو عبيت حجي بينام أبزع قداميت جوجل يزلو تبوه كمان سد الريو.
We can start to see how hard it is to stay on the wheels. Arnold Ali not happy with the rider. It looks as though that was Gleb Brushinsky. Maybe let the wheels.
زعتها قداميت جوجل ريو.
Likewise with the rider.
أبزع هنا ميباري لو كله. بينام سوكين يباري.
I think that must be Jan Sommer, who's been in the breakaway all day. And, you know, as well, that if you find yourself at the end of an echelon, there's just hardly any way to return from it. I do remember seeing Arnaud de Lee, I think it was like Brugge de Panne or one of these classics in the Belgian Westhoek in Western Flanders, jumping from one echelon to the other, but that is rarely seen that a rider can actually do that. So I was looking at this group. I think Binyam Gre might also finds himself isolated. No teammates there for him.
Yeah. No, the Gantu wouldn't be named. Benny is a love Zaguchilla. Binyam Marit. Well, I had a lane matters.
Which is a really strong.
Jihadi Homes are the low.
Strong option for U18.
نالبات هرعب بجيلة تحاويسها after the Harwitz لعكي يوم دول حيلم ده حرب طموه.
Under 23 world champion, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was Leuven.
في اللي ريو عسران كنت نسكن دل في اللي أمانجو عبا بجيلة تاع حروت زلا مانجو عبين يمز تاع حروت زلا ما هاد عسران سكن دل زود في اللي قن جول مسموعة.
It's not going to be your strongest ally there.
It's not. And I'm just trying to see. I mean, Kenny Molly's still within this group. Yeah, so right now we can just see him towards the back of the group in that bright pink jersey. You know, for right now, for me, you'd say, well, leave it to the World Tour teams. You'd be up towards the front, but you've got to man up the road. And so right now, that group of what we're saying, 20 riders are in that front group. From what we can see.
تنايل علي 9 كيلومتر قال عطيه له فليته متنحر كي عطونا إليه. Okay.
He's disadvantaged the fact that he's been in the breakaway all day and maybe he hasn't got the legs. Maybe he's radioed through and said, "Look, I'm not feeling too good. I'm not quite sure I can do something and contribute here. So maybe we need to change the situation on the road."
We just passed the Chateau de Bioul, another old castle even dating back to the 11th century. And it's now quite a prominent.
تعمل سبيد تعمل حيدر تعمل سبيد غوجلو. درو سرسان حمشان تريفو ولا. سرسان حمشان تريفو ولا كيلومتر.
Doing most of the work. I think we're going to the three there for Alps in the Koning. Then Herman's a strong rider there for Cofidis. Roger Adria after his really strong Vuelta. Baroncini. Together with Molano, 3 riders even for Bingo with Matisse Lambrecht and Marco Tizza. Ooh, this is a hard moment. Rick Vlieger is a 4th rider even for Bingo. Haile Michel for the breakaway. Riley Sheehan and Jake Stewart representing Israel Premier Tech. Derek Moesterbuis, de Lee en
أبزع قرب دسقان كم زي أرنولد ليز بال السحير برات استمس بعد بينام مالو كنت لريو السوق كورا دارين بينام كم زين رجلنا حيال بتعمل سوا بتعمل حيال برات استمس يحمل كابزاون تقرأ لريو كابزاون تقرأ لريو
in trouble.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And don't forget, this section of the road, Jose, they're going into that block headwind. And so for some riders, they're really struggling with this section of the course. Riley Sheehan move alongside Jake Stewart here as he just bridges across. And he's so incredibly strong. We saw that again. Another rider who was so good in the Vuelta. And the rider from the US just bridging across. You can see this. Yeah, he's come back.
قلت عباية بجيلة محوسة ترفعني بزاد مات كيلومتر قناة ساسان 4 كيلومتر بيوت بسموها توصلني
not a bad rider to come back with.
Brushinsky there on the bottom of our screen, he's out. this is an interesting final. We have a little bit of a descent coming. Now it's Tudor moving to the front with some riders in good form, including Matteo Trentin, who was absolutely racing formidably at the European Championships. Mika Hening, Rick Pluimers, good result for him quite recently in the Renewed Tour. Simon Pelot, Charin, Swedish champion Jakob Eriksson, and Niels.
እዚኦም ዳርጋ ተጓሪሖም ከም ዝሪኦም ዘለና ዲጓሪሖም ዘለዉ እቲ ክሰስ ደወስታ ትፍልሊ ዳርጋ ድኻም ይኸውን ናይ ዋፆም ዝኹም ዝንገያ
Good ride there by the young Spaniard in Spain.
He's also so versatile, and again, he's another rider who's very fast, and he's excellent on this type of parkour where you've got the short, sharp climbs. You think back to Flesh Wallon a couple of years ago when he was with the Keepo Kern Farmer, and his excellent result that he had there was wonderful to see. It was, if you've been following him and seeing what he was able to do in the early years of being with the Keepo Kern Farmer in the welter alone, and then you see in Flesh Wallon how good he was there. I think he was just outside the top 10 in Flesh.
ጾታ ጉዳይ 32 ትሪፍ
But he's an excellent talent, and he always knows exactly where he needs to be. He's always in a good position.
Kilometers to go in the Grand Prix de Wallonie edition 64. It's a race with a lot of history. When we go back to the very first edition, we go back to 1935. It even ran during the Second World War, despite, of course, all the things that were going on here in the Ardennes. Remember the battles at Bastogne and etc. But they run throughout the war, and then there was a long hiatus throughout the 1950s and 1960s. But this is edition number 64 of this race. We had some Echelon action about 15 to 10 kilometers ago, where we ended up with this group.
Arno Delete
and also Jasper de Buys, who was third last year. William Gramay is in his group. We spot Jake Stewart there as well. Some of the riders of the original breakaway are still in this group, but the peloton is getting closer right now. So it looks like this move that came from a little bit of crosswind action will be neutralized, but it will have cost some teams and some riders more energy than they would have wanted to spend.
It certainly would, and they're using this section where it's completely protected, where the wind is coming from the right-hand side, but you've got all the forest and the trees that are keeping everyone very sheltered. Movistar, the team who have been bringing this back, you can just see the blue jerseys a little further back. One rider along with another rider from Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe just trying to come across. With two riders on the front of the peloton. And of course, they've got the defending champion. They've got Gonzalo Serrano, who won last year's edition. But again, another team who've got at least 3 riders who could win this race.
Yeah, Abagujil already was at them. How is
Q36.5 to try something in those crosswinds. It's how much is taken out, and you can see what's a destiny. They're not giving up at the front. They're not letting off the gas.
And that is going to make the riders here, especially at the back of this punch, suffer greatly. Movistar has done their job. They've got 2 favourites here with Serrano you mentioned, but I think Aramburu is even a bigger favourite for these kind of things.
And look at
we do know that both, we do know that both Arnaud Delete and Binyam Gramay have no jet lag issues whatsoever, because they're racing there in first and second place. They faced each other in the Grand Prix de Quebec and the Grand Prix de Montréal. Now we have an attack from one of the riders from Alps in the Koning. It looks like Oscar Riesebeek.
Binyam
See if we can zoom in.
Arnaud Delete
Indeed, it is Oscar Riesebeek.
Because you volat someone on Echelon.
Important rider on this team. Dutch squad at the Olympics as well, indicating how important it is. Teammate, of course, of Mathieu van der Poel. And they have cards to play. We talk about Quinten Hermans and Caden Groves, but also Xandro Marissa did a good Vuelta, and I'm kind of curious to see what young Thibaut Del Grosso can actually do if he gets the chance, and maybe he finds himself in a place where he can make a difference. It would be rather cool. Not likely, but rather cool. Well, with less than 30 kilometers to go, we do know for sure that this race is not getting to a standstill anymore. Our breakaway of 6 was caught at about 40 kilometers from the line, and now we have attacks left, right, and center.
تاخد 19 كيلومتر عباك جد أرجع بحسب دلهم له أبزاور الدن بنيام كسبوا زخلا فلاتا زي أرنولد دليز بعد السيو أزي حياة بزو أنت يوم سلسلة هذا من السلسلة دو تغني تبينا وتسين حسين كنت مرة من اللي يربطها جنوعيش حلو ده كتير كنت أماتهم من فلاتا
Just such a beautiful part of Belgium. If you have weather like this, if you are here in Liège, Bastogne, Liège at times, it's a little bit more to the east of where we're racing here, but and it's raining and there's sleet and snow, and then you're particularly unhappy. But on a day like this, I would have just loved to throw my bike in the car and do a little tour around the Belgian Ardennes. It's so pretty. There goes Mats Wurtsmit, together with Rui Oliveira. Oliveira also very active.
ودملي لما عتي فولا تخطى ما تم على ما عتي ودملي.
Together with his brother, they were the only two for Portugal, making life really difficult for us, Hannah, because we're wearing the exact same kit. Normally, one of the brothers is a former Portuguese national champion. So he's got bands on his arm, so that's how we tell them apart. But they were not in the national kit, so I wonder if his mother and dad can tell them apart. That's what you have with identical twins, of course.
ودو ملي غاسر زلندي.
And what a month it's been
So
for
ندرك عم صحيح
Gabriel
ندهر لغينه.
after winning Olympic gold on the track in the Madison, and then going straight back onto the road, carrying that form, and always one of the crucial riders, particularly for
هو فيديو درجة هو مالسهم
Milano,
كابت زرد لون
his
تبو
sprinter.
أيرن.
So it's going to be really interesting to see what they can do. As we already saw, Baroncini was right up towards the front. He was very attentive. Milano likewise. Morgado on this kind of finish. You know, you think back to earlier on this season with Morgado, how he had some really good results. We have tried to chase with Riesbeek.
If you don't want to know the results coming from Luxembourg, which is, basically around 150 kilometers from where we are racing now, please don't turn down your volume, because I'm going to tell you who won stage 1 of the Skoda Tour de Luxembourg. Mathieu van der Poel won the first stage. Of course, he went to Luxembourg to hone his form ahead of the World Championships.
after تورنا لوكسمبورغ زبال كأول دراوي كذا لندي أوها فاندربول دعوة الأقدام.
That was Luxembourg, Hannah. We've got 26 kilometers to go with Oscar Riesbeek on an attack, and this, of course, forces other teams to do the work instead of obviously still have and also quite possibly Xandro Marissa as a plan A, B, or C.
yeah, what a luxury to have so many different riders who are a potential for a victory here in Wani. But likewise with Ben.
بفولاتاي تعويت حكي فاندربول
rider who is in between.
بجامالا حجت ولا هم بيصنع بسمعنا بجامالا حجوا ولا بلا زغنا لوكسمبرغ نا نزار دلنا جايس نايز كون نايز ورد راي كون زورد حجز كايدلا كودا 15 تري فولو تورد ابزيا توم كنت تفراتي فولاتا زلو ارنولد لي بينام بالماي زيوم كلتيوم كندم صبي مينا فولاتا مالت
all the races that were won by Mike Hirschi, all of them. Talking about a big favourite for the World Championships, Mike Hirschi, but there is a certain guy from Slovenia who, wants to fill up a hole on his rather impressive palmares, and that is, of course, Tadej Pogačar. I think, Hannah, the question at the World Championship is not
كيلومتر بعيد نقرأكم هذا نراي كعطونا إلى تنايجي كعطونا متى إسران حموشن تري فولو كيلومتر إسران حموشن تري فولو
غدا I'm going to say 47 kilometers
وده غدا إسران حموشن تري فولو
exciting because I know you'll be in commentary but he is just a league in his own, isn't he? This is the Meuse River. We just go past Profondeville. This is the flattest and lowest part of our circuit. River, of course, carves into the bedrock, creating flatter surfaces and also making the hills along the river even steeper. We have an important meeting there for Lotto Destiny. So far, they leave a good impression. Arnaud Delis, he's active. He was actively involved, Hannah, in creating the Echelon.
He was, alongside Q36.5, and the fact that they were their strength in numbers in that front. But they've always been able to
Arnaud Delis ganti amri wasem sabaru wala tagat sadali wasem sawa نبينا برما حجي متعد لأنه تام بتشرش تقوت لهم كحجزوا لهم ده حجزوا هنا نبينا وتام بتشرش حجزوا كلهم تام قلت
Bergmos, the 23-year-old rider, and for Delis, they're on the back foot really. This is really working to the favour of Alpecin-Deceuninck, the fact that they're having to use their riders at this point. And this is a fast section of road where they're going to be on. You've also got to be aware that you've got a few little pinch points where the road forks and you need to stay to the right-hand side. And we saw already in the women's race earlier on, if you overshoot the corner, you can end up taking the left road, which is the higher road up. And you just need to make sure that you take that inside line, take that right-hand turn along the river, and then you're going to make that left-hand turn into the base of the climb.
This looks like a lovely day to drop your anchor, as these people did, quite clearly. Hope they have snacks. Looks like they have snacks.
Looks like it.
Might be a cheese platter involved even.
Wonderful.
Ladies who lunch or eat cheese. A wonderful rider, Oscar Rizebe, comes from a town called Tiel, which is right in the middle of the country, where the Netherlands is basically cut in two by many rivers. Tiel quite often spotted Oscar on the Lekdijk, which is quite a long dike along the River Lek, where a lot of pro riders do their intervals. Because you always have a headwind, at least one.
وتاكودا اسران كتن تري فولو كيلومتر اسران كتن تري فولو دا تودا
if you have time, not a lot of traffic. I also spot Alexei Lutsenko there. He's joined the Decathlon AG2R train. Of course, Alexei Lutsenko is always a favourite when it comes to finishes like we have today. We haven't really discussed it, but he's there. warm welcome to those of you joining us for the final 21 kilometers of this Grand Prix de Wallonie. It's already the 64th edition of this race. I'll give you a very short summary of this 202 kilometer long race. We started in Blenny, which is near Liège, just to the east of Liège, and now moved south with a lovely tailwind. We had a breakaway of 6 riders, 3 from Belgium, Arno Kleijs for Flanders Valoise, Kenny Bolly for Van Rijssel Roubaix, and Michael Lambrecht for Bingo Wallonie Bruxelles. We had Kinve Haile Michael, the Ethiopian rider for Cajarural, Jan Sommer, Swiss rider for Q36.5, and Gleb Brushenski for Astana, Kazakhstan, a man from Kazakhstan. They never really got a big gap, 3.5 minutes maximum, as the peloton led by Thomas de Gent kept everything under control. And then at 49, 50, 49 kilometers to go,
እዚ ኣብ ቤልጅየም ይዝካየድ ኣሎ ኣብ ቤልጅየም ትባል ሃገር ኣብ ይዝካየድ ኣሎ
were quite attentive. Obviously the Koning, Lotte Destiny, Q36.5 for example. We found Arnaud de Lee in that first echelon, but also Biniam Geremaitu, the stars from the Canadian races. And that just came back together about 5 kilometers ago. So now the peloton is complete. Apart from one rider at the front, and that is Oscar Riesebeke, representing Alpecin Koning. We've got 9 Wilson teams here, quite a few big stars, 2 former winners, with Gonzalo Serrano, winner of a sprint with Peloton's last year, and also the 2017 winner, Tim Wellens, who won it with over a minute to spare. So that was our last big solo win. My name is Jose Bain. With me is Hannah Walker. Hannah, what can we expect for the final 20 kilometers?
Yeah, the riders are getting themselves set on this wide road, Jose, before they're going to make that left-hand turn into the base of that 3-kilometer climb. That comes with 18.5 kilometers to go. They'll get to the top of that with 15.5 kilometers to go, although the actual sprint point, the immediate sprint, comes a little before that, but you still continue to climb up. It's on that false flat.
Hate when that happens.
Absolutely. And the climb itself is...
هادي مصنيحريو هادي مصنيحة درجة أركيو ميمريو هاد سبيد بتاع مع بوجيل بتاع ما تسحب الحاجة تاخد عشرة تشعات تليفون كيلومتر.
If it's a small group, you could maybe hold on to the finish. However, once you get towards that finish line inside the final 10 kilometers, you've got a headwind, which if you're a sole rider or of a small group and you've got a chasing group behind you, doesn't really play into your favor. But you can just see how wide it is. There's Oscar Razorback, he's going to be caught. Everybody trying to move themselves up because they know that once they make this left-hand turn, positioning is going to be crucial. It's quite narrow. You want to make sure you're up towards the front. You can just see the argy-bargy, the pushing and shoving.
So in the women's race, that Gaia Realini, the little trek rider, launched her attack on this climb. She managed to continue on a next uncategorized one. It's only a kilometer long, but yeah, despite having an average gradient of 4%, it had pretty steep ramps. She managed to keep the peloton at about 30 seconds for quite some time, but like Hannah said, once we get onto the main road on our way to Namur, there was a headwind, and of course, as a lone attacker, that is never a great thing to have. Complete peloton. Let's see who's going to attack this climb first. You can see the flags. It's a stern headwind at the moment. Here we go. With Lotte Destiny onto the climb. Arnaud de Lee, the Belgian champion, in third place. Also, Paul moving up. Quite a few riders there for UNOX Mobility. They have Abrahamsen. Crash with Lapera. One of the riders, Aaron Dox as well, for Alpecin de Koning. What's that? Like a cattle grid or something? Looked like a cattle grid of some sort there in the middle of the road. But yeah, that's shame. Really bad. One of the aces for the Echelon 82R team.
ቢኒያም አለው ቅሚት አለው ቢኒያም ነው ቢኒያም ቅሚት አለው ታፕታፕ ናገበርና ጋይስ ታፕታፕ ናገበርና አሁን ከምዘለና ማለት ቢኒያም ቅሚት ይዘላ
just a touch of wheels to the rider of Lotte Destiny. Nothing on the road. It was just a touch of wheels between Lapera and the rider in front, and number 17, Docs, just checking on Lepera. That's a huge shame because he was one of the big favourites, and the fact that you've got this uphill finish, which really suits the French champion, a huge shame for him, and fell so hard too.
Now the work is up to Emil Herzog here, representing Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. They have Roger Adria, who already left a pretty decent impression. I think the finish might be a little bit too hard for Sam Welsford because the Citadelle de Namur is a tricky one. We saw in the women's race that it's all about being in the first 5 to 10 riders for the entire climb. So that is, of course, what the riders are aiming for. Biniam Girmay, I think, the top favourite for this race. It's tailor-made for him. We saw in that little bit of echelon action that we had that he's awake, he's focused, he's ready. But so is Arnaud Delis.
بنيام كحولهم بنيام كعوتهم سمعوا بنيام كعوتهم
Alex Aramburu, also a rider to look out for.
بنيام توب فيفوريت ولا لا هان عقبت كأس زخونة تبغتها لا دلي زبال كحيان أنا دلي قاس فا سنافا يكون نسو حلو والله تبغت وتاخذ ده عسرت شوعات تريفولو كيلومتر ناتودي.
This is Joe Blackmore in third position, but Jake Stewart was very active early on. But Joe Blackmore, of course, winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège under 23. That was only this year. That was this year. Imagine doing the New Year's resolutions when you're Joe Blackmore. It's like, yeah, I hope I win a bike race, then winning 4, turning pro, win Tour de l'Avenir, being one of the top favourites for the World Championship. That was some year for Joe. Incredible year.
وتاخذ ده عسرت شوعات تريفولو كيلومتر.
Grosso there in second place.
نشتي عقبة سرزلة ريوانو يروس حلو ريوا.
Two of the aces. Of course, Arnaud Delis is the rider to look out for lots of destiny, but Jasper de Buys has been on the podium twice before, both in 2019 and last year. So he also kind of loves this finish on the Citadelle. Citadelle quite familiar there for the man in second place, Thibaut Grosso. We'll be back here in December, I should say, with the World Championships, I think last year, or the year before, in Namur, fortification, 2 millennia old, remnants of Roman inhabitations even in that region. Nothing happens. Especially for those riders at the back, this is make or break.
It is make or break, but it is due to the fact that Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe is setting such a hard tempo. It's stopping
kilometer 16 تريفولو 16 تريفولو كيلومتر.
They want to make sure that they keep the pace really high. It's really working into the favour of Roger Adria and their other team members, and the fact that, of course, if you're sitting in 40th position, 50th position coming into the bottom, it's so hard when you see the pace being set here at the front to try and move up. How much faster you've got to be going to try and even just pick off 5, 6, 10 riders to move yourself up here. And so this is really working into the favour of the team on the front, stopping any of those big attacks, keeping everything all together. It's also hurting the legs of some of those pure sprinters, let's say. Taking something out.
Bingal, Wallonie-Bruxelles, the local team, so to say. They, of course, want to go onto that podium. That's why this rider attacks this little sprint that we have at 15 kilometers from the line. They're sponsored by the regional government of Wallonia, basically the same as Flanders-Valoise, with one difference. On Flanders-Valoise, you have to be Flemish. On Bingal, Wallonie-Bruxelles, there's quite a few nationalities and even Belgians who are not from Wallonia. But they are sponsored by the regional governments, so this is an important race for them.
Yeah, and important to make sure that he gets the intermediate too.
Exactly, they're very important. Get onto the podium. Easily done. Nobody else seemed interested.
تاخد 15 كيلومتر only 15
This is an incredible pull from Emil Herzog.
بتعمل سوالة زمالهم
19-year-old German rider.
19.
Absolutely incredible.
And of course you can see from the shape of the peloton that the pace is really high. Well, we have crested this climb. Here we are with Johan Jacobs all the way at the end of the peloton, right in front of him, William Lumalevi. You know, actually, they have two interesting riders with Abrahamsen and the unskilled Abrahamsen. Yeah, who didn't have the luckiest of European championships. This man, on the other hand, Mats Schmidt, was very active, attacking a lot on the loop that we had with the cobbles and the hills in the middle section of the European Championships. And of course, with also Riley Sheehan still there, the American, with Joe Blackmore, they have a pretty strong team. Jake Stewart can do a little bit of sprint with elevation as well. The pace is on. We're making our way to a small, uncategorized climb. It's only a kilometer long, 1.2 to be exact. It's given at 4.2%, but we've seen in the women's race that it's much steeper than that, and that it's got sectors that, yeah, quite possibly are in the double digits.
And it's just another place where you can really hurt the legs of your rivals. And for these two riders now, with Virg Schmidt, and then you've got the one rider here, here with a slender advantage, but it's a good opportunity, particularly on this section of the course. There's already everybody behind is starting to look around, looking who's wanting to commit, who's wanting to chase. These two riders, it's full commitment here, and Georg Zimmermann is an excellent rider to have with you in a breakaway. He's so strong.
Yeah, with two riders, two teams represented at the front who have riders who can finish it off on the Citadel and Namur, with, of course, Binyam Girmay as the top favourite. This forces other teams to do the work.
Yeah.
And most notably, Lotte Destiny will have to get to the job right now.
أزياء تبغتهم حسيهم أزياء لأن زمران مهدامهم ودقانت بينام مهدام تبغتهم هناتنا تم قالوا عبيت تاع قالوا تقانت متان خسر حيت علامة تم في اللينة تناي أرنودريز بالو أقدم متان خسر حيت علامة هم زوجي ولا سو تبغت حسابه أتعلق أخوان دلا.
Tim Bellens there with number 87. Watch out for him. He was very important, of course, in the win on Sunday for his teammate.
No, زهرة مكسي واحد يمكن دلو كلتهم ودقانتو نبينا ما خير زلا زمرمان بقى نسي فليتي وماسي من تانو تم قال قانت أن خسر خام تغايلي صغير زلا تتوقع خد عسى تغت تريفولا 12 تريفولا عسى تغت كيلومتر تريفولا تتوقع
the first line into that sharp left-hand bend, guide through, hold the pace.
This is Thibaut Grosjean. Why not try the under-23 cyclocross world champion and under-23 Dutch road race champion, a huge talent. He's doing a great job here. Comes from the development team. So gets a shot here to race with the World Tour squad at Alpecin de Koning. And they all want to get to the front, so Georg Zimmermann and Mats Schmidt. You'll find Mason Holloman with number 123. And this is not really an organised chase on these two riders. This is basically every man for himself.
Absolutely, and you see once you've made that left-hand turn into this narrow road, how it's just been an acceleration. The elastic snapped, one rider's lost the wheel or let the wheel go, and it's 10 riders, 11 riders who are sort of going clear now, but there's no real organisation at the moment per se. It's all coming back together.
Hello, comes what the gun to
Zimmermann. The gap is slender. I mean, this is where we're going to get to one of those steep sections here that you were talking about, and you can see here from the rollers how steep it starts to get to, and you get to 10% very shortly.
I was just about to say that, indeed. This is hard, but then also we must take into account that we have headwinds still coming up. Thibodeau Grosso gets to the front of the bunch, doing the work there for his teammates. Johan Jacobs does it for his teammates with Serrano and
مانشي يا شوعة بزيروس جلسي ريارين بالتجرينيا بقى نوعي كنا غادي نرجع سو تسفى قبل كابريمير ليج كومونري وتاخد 10 تريفولو كيلومتر 10 كيلومتر تريفولو تاخد.
We're getting closer and closer to the Citadel de Namur. I'm sure you have the specs ready there for us, Hannah. What kind of climb is that? Our finish climb.
Our finishing climb, well, you make that left-hand turn into the base of the climb. It's you go from the tarmac, the asphalt, you go on to the pave, you've got the cobbles, and immediately it's 6%, and that's very consistent all the way until 1 kilometre to go, where it starts to level off ever so slightly, but it's a false flat, so you're still at 1%, 2%. It's one of those climbs where you've got several hairpins as well, so you need to make sure that you're not too far back, because the way that if one team wants to try and take the control, if you find yourself in 20th or 25th, 30th position, and you're too far back, it's going to be so hard, because the way that you will be flicked from and almost on the end of the tail whip on that climb, you just want to make sure that you're having it as smooth as possible of the climb itself. And we already saw earlier on, and we've seen in the past, how those hairpins, particularly if one team takes the control and they set a blistering pace, how difficult it is, and you can see those splits start to open up.
We have
9.5 kilometres.
Yeah, Kofidis at the front.
Confidence at the front, number 43. You've got Brian Coco right on the wheel, Axel Zangler. That's really interesting, because for Brian Coco, he could have a great opportunity, great shot, but of course, his young teammate, the 25-year-old, very, very fast finisher indeed. 15 seconds for this duo, Georg Zimmermann and Matthias Schmidt here. They're such strong, committed riders for this kind of breakaway too, and they're going to happen in the size. Now that what's left of this Peloton, it's very reduced after that climb that we had that they crested with 15.5 kilometres to go. Now they're going to have this section where into the final 9 kilometres, you've got the fast descent that's going to be coming. So you've got it's only around, 3%, minus 3%, and then they'll take you right down onto the river. You'll make that left-hand bend, that left-hand turn where it's really sharp. You'll run yourself along the riverfront. But again, you're going to be they're into this cross headwind at this moment. Jeffrey Soot moving his way up on the far left in the white jersey. You can just see him there.
And we have the Spanish champion sighting for the first time there, with Alexa Romero, of course. Yeah, that gradient of the Citadel de Namur, my sheet here says 2.9 kilometres, 4%. But that is because the final kilometre is basically false flat. The first 2 kilometres are really, really hard. But this is an interesting move, Hannah. They are fully cooperating.
They are, and I think the fact that they're two riders who are cooperating together, they're fully committed. As I said before, you've got Georg Zimmermann, who is so strong in a breakaway, and I think back to last year's Tour de France when Pello Bilbao won the stage in the Tour, and it was Georg Zimmermann who was in the breakaway within that day, or one of the riders that was in the breakaway within that day. And even after such a hard, arduous stage into Issoire, he was still second, and he'd still made a lot of attacks into that final. He's just an incredible person to have in a breakaway, and they're giving them a hard time. I mean, 41 seconds. We saw that time gap before. It was hovering nicely around 15, 16 seconds, but now we're getting to almost crunch point here, because everybody behind needs to fully commit here.
Yeah, we see some new teams there at the front. Total Energy are showing they had a very successful Tour of Istanbul. That was won by Mathieu Bourgodeau, a rider who could do pretty well on these kind of finales. He's there with number 161 on the wheel of his teammate Sandy Dujardin. So that is a team that is interested. We have Movistar committing Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. Still have to get used to that one. The 45 seconds, that is an interesting one.
And you can lose a lot of time into that final. Let's not forget that in the final 3 kilometers, particularly if teams and riders have still got riders at their disposal, the duo up front could lose a significant amount of time. And the fact, at some point they might start to look at each other. Then you've got a little bit of the cross headwind right along the riverfront too. So when you make that left-hand turn with 5.9 kilometers to go, you're going to be in that cross headwind.
Zimmerman and
better than the duo up front here.
Organised chase, and from what we saw before, it was a little bit mishmash. But now Movistar, UAE, and also Bora Red Bull. There we go again. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe are setting the pace. I absolutely hate these things there. They are well signalled, but at this pace they're going 70 at the moment. It's not ideal. But let's go back to the river. There we are. And the Meuse River, very important for this region, and also the reason that we have such a large fortification here. On the confluence of the two rivers, the Meuse being the biggest one, going from here to Liège, to Maastricht, and all the way to Rotterdam. Not all the way to Rotterdam, by the way. But never mind. And the Sambre, that's why we have a town here. That's why 2000 years ago, the Romans already had their first fortification. Citadel that was a point of sieges and conquest, Hannah, throughout history. Because if you have a fortification like that, people like to besiege it. It's a given. But now, especially known for the fact that we have lovely cyclocross races here, and of course every year this Grand Prix de Wallonie. Last year, Gonzalo Serrano won in a sprint with Dylan Teuns. The year before, it was Mathieu van der Poel beating Biniam Girmay and that same Gonzalo Serrano. So Biniam Girmay, he knows this finish. He's got the form. He's got the team. He's got a few teammates still with him. But they still have two riders at the front, including one of his teammates. So what is the strategy going to be there for Intermarché?
It works to their favour. They don't have to do the pulling. They can just sit tight, be patient, be ready if it does come all back together. And 33 seconds now with 4.6 kilometres to go. Zwihoff committing himself on the front. Roger Adria, who's sitting on his wheel, the Spanish rider. Moving up Total Energy, have got a couple of riders too. Bergamo, you already mentioned, could be a great shout for today.
Cofidis very active there with Axel Zingler, who's a good candidate for this one. And Georg Simon, he is participating. I wonder what the instructions by Dimitri Kleis, the sports director, are going to be. Are you going for this 50% chance with the man at the front, or is this still working as bait for the riders at the front of the peloton? Because it makes them work harder, and Intermarché wants he can sit back there with Biniam Girmay and let the rival teams do all the work.
Yeah, it's a perfect scenario, perfect situation. You put yourself in a really good position to win the race, 50% chance of winning the race, but you've still got Biniam Girmay, who's got one rider still there. He's a little bit further to the left side now, but you've got another rider who, if it does come all back together, they can see the duo just up ahead. You've got someone who's one of the fastest of all the riders here in this peloton at the Grand Prix de Wallonie. So right now it's working right into the favour of Intermarché 1C4. Movistar, they're now committing themselves. Aaron Brewer, you can see the Spanish champion sitting in third wheel. This is a really, really hard pace, and soon they're going to turn off this main road. They're going to make that left-hand turn, and then you're going to go from the nice smooth road, you're going to be onto the pavé, onto the cobbles. Everybody's wanting to try and fight and hold the position too. They want to make sure that they go into the base here on the left-hand side. There we go, in a good place.
Here we go, the last bits of asphalt before we hit the slopes of the Citadelle de Namur with Georg Zimmermann and Mats Schmidt. There we go, cobbles are incoming. There's a few pinch points on the climbs as well where it narrows. Of course, for these two riders, no problem at all. What I noticed, Hannah, is that Biniam Girmay is quite often really close to Arnaud Delis. On his wheel, and now a little bit further back, but usually quite close to Arnaud Delis.
Yeah, and he knows he's one of the
بنيام مش أرنولد ديليز بان العوي روتا حجوة زلا ما هاتش حيالي سبت عم هذا دقانتو نعم سحولو ريو.
He's wanted to make sure that he's well positioned. He's always so well positioned. Biniam Girmay is a really clever, smart, tactical rider. You know,
Wait a minute. Why is Arnaud Delis already in second position? Of course, I mentioned to you that Jasper de Buys has been third on 2 occasions. But finding Arnaud Delis already there at the front with a team a little bit further back, that is quite early.
Yeah, we only got a short glimpse, but as you can see, you know, it's even just to hold your position right now. You can see sitting in the second wheel, capitalising Unuak's mobility, doing the work, confidence moving forward with a couple of riders.
Georg Zimmermann, Mats Schmidt still holding on to that 15-second gap. Got less than 2 kilometres to go. And this is going absolutely all out here on the cobbles. Oh, Schmidt, he is...
Is he
breaking as well? It looks like he is. And this might be a fantastic day for Georg Zimmermann. He clearly indicated to the sports management that he feels really, really good.
And if you're feeling really, really good, and he could tell that he's going to get to a point where the gap's coming down to 15, 16 seconds, and if he's got something left in the tank, you know, you saw there Mats Schmidt start to capitulate, and for Georg Zimmermann, if he's got the legs, look how hard he's trying to bring him back here. And already the amount of time that Mats Schmidt has lost, 18 seconds, 1,700 meters to go. And don't forget, in 700 meters, that's when we start to get to the plateau. It starts to flatten out. It still continues to climb at around 1%, 2%, and then it kicks up again at the finish line. So, yeah, they're making it, Intermarché wanting to make this very, very difficult for the chase behind, and have lots of destiny. The team who
علامات أربيكم على خون تسفق ما تنتي دقانتون أرنولد ديليز نمسرعة علامة لأن بصراحة الحمد لله فريتة.
I think Georg Zimmermann is gone. Winner last year of a stage in the Criterium, 2021, his first professional win in France. Intermarché wanting, of course, are also a team from Wallonia. He starts to suffer right now. Of course, there was so much power behind that attack that he now has to do it and try to get every last ounce of energy. So he only returns on Monday and now racing back on the Citadelle de Namur. Lots of Destiny are putting everything at it to try and catch this man. He's still... It's not 15 seconds. I don't believe that this gap is 15 seconds, but he still has got a gap. But I think that last kilometre is going to be the longest kilometre in the career of Georg Zimmermann.
And you can see just how much this is hurting. You can see he's on the tops, he gets himself onto the drops, he tries to get some leverage, get out of the saddle, and he's one of those riders who's capable of pushing a really, really big gear. And now Lotte Destiny, they're one of their riders, you know, done, pulled off the front. Unuak's mobility, try and salvage something. 11 seconds. Alexander Buro immediately reacting, starting to move forward. Trentin's there in the black jersey for Tudor Pro Cycling, and he's in great form too, the Italian. Another little pinch point. There is Georg Zimmermann. Oh, this is going to be heartbreak.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those moments that everybody is going, oh no. But that final kilometre is going to be too long, too hard for Georg Zimmermann. It looks so promising for the German. He signed a new contract this year, the 26-year-old. But UNOX, they are bringing him back. They're not there yet. He can still go on and still fight for the win. But then he has to get into that final corner. How much energy does he have left after that long-range attack? Alex Aramburu, he's just sitting on the wheel there of the X Mobility rider. Same goes for Matteo Trentin. And here we are, the moment of heartbreak for Gerard Timmerman. So we do have the sprint. We have Tim Wellens leading out his teammate.
Arnold Dilly the Rio,
Matteo Trentin, Aramburu going
Binams
into that
Arnold
final
Dilly his
corner
Lorotario.
first. That is usually a good point to be.
Where Binam the
Alex
Hachi,
Aramburu with a
why,
really
Kla,
long sprint. Looks like Matteo Trentin is on the deck there. But Alex Aramburu with that really long sprint.
Binam the Hachi, I had to tell you
Towards the finish line. Is he going to hold on? It's just fine. No, he's not.
why Binams?
Roger Adria gets it.
What has
Fighting out for the victory there. And Aramburu, wow, I mean, it's
Sent
such
to bottom
a
has
long
backup, sent to
sprint
bottom
from
has.
that bottom corner. And you can see, it's hard to see from the camera angle, but you're still climbing. It's only around
Sent to
1%,
bottom has
2%,
backup.
but
Why?
it's such a
Hang
long
زمان
sprint
قاعد
from
بسلام
that
ود
final
قاعد
corner.
وطفتا تجيمون إنه راح تحت أفتا بوتاغاي تبوتان ده شو بوتان حسن
After a rather marvellous Vuelta where he was so important for Primoz Roglic. This is his first race back. He crashed in that corner, Matteo Trentin. That was really sad to see. But Roger Adria, he wins this race. And he's been very
ريو أبزيت ما أبزيسي ما أخذ كريد نيرو بقول تعطيه زيادة ريو
Aramburu, the Spanish champion, he did
أبزي
everything
طويل ريو
right.
ريو
He
طويل
knew that he needed to be first into that corner.
وتاني
He
وده
knew
تسجل
that he
مالته
could launch the sprint really early. And he's another rider who's got that capability, that ability to sprint for a long time. But you just see that the rider here from Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe just comes around right at the last moment. What a
سأسأل لما سندي ذا كده
just managed to use the slipstream.
لا بعين بس سندي
Comes round. It's only in what, the last 15 meters or so he managed to come round.
And he was not invisible during the race. He's done a lot of work countering attacks, being on the attack himself.
روجر أدرياس
This
بعد
might be
عود
one of
ريو
those cases of super
روجر
compensation coming
أدرياس
from the
بعد عود
Vuelta.
سلق دعوته
And now getting his second win. His first win was in the Route d'Occitanie, a smaller stage race in the south of France. Comes from Equipo Kern Pharma, that fantastic team where
وتصير كن رمها
who had
عشان
3 stage wins in the Vuelta, was picked up by Rebel Bora Hansgrohe and now finishes off in style. What a sprint by Roger Adria.
It was really impressive, really impressive. And again, it's one of those climbs, and we said earlier on, this is a kind of course that really suits Roger Adria. He's a guy who can manage some of the longer climbs, but he really thrives on these short, steep climbs. And you think back to Echelon when he finished just outside the top 10 last year. And for Adria, this kind of finish.
هواش وتابوتا تعطيات تدري قاعد وقعدها قاعد يسكيسها موضوع الزوج ودي كمان تسات ويروعي ويقولاتي له ويروعي وحمجاتي له
He left it. It was too late. He was out of position. And he couldn't manage to get round them. It was all but too late. And so,
out of position,
but Adria and Aramburu, and know the importance of positioning.
We also we might have 3 UE Team Emirates rider in the top 10. Tim Wellens was there as
بنيان
well.
رواياتنا لكم رياضينا
As was
بنيان رواياتي له
Roger Adria wins ahead of Alex Aramburu. Champouzin on the podium with them. Grimay, Pluimers, another great result there for the young Dutchman. Wellens, Hermans, Blackmore, Zingle and Rui Oliveira.
بنيان رواياتي له.
But what a win for the youngster from Catalonia.
بنيان رواياتي له. زوانة بوتيدي نقع أي ودغت رأيت بوزيشن هم يروح حق عش بوتا ما حد بون يغنى بجمعة ساعات أبلاش باشو زوانة نقع سلام ودادري.
A great top 10 with proven talent and up-and-comers like Joe Blackmore, like Rick Pluimers, and of course our winner, Roger Adria.